Oh, okay. Uh, Here we are once again. Like I said at the end of the show on Tuesday, I had no idea for today. But then I had an idea for today, and the idea came from a pan, not from a food item. This pan, it's actually still in my oven. This pan, a massive cast iron pan. Um, I haven't measured it, but you know, it's this big. It's heavy too. Um, it's the largest cast iron pan I've been able to find at Goodwill, and it was in shockingly good shape. I don't know who dropped it off, but they hadn't been taking care of it, but they gave up on it really fast. It took, I don't know, 20 minutes of work to get the crust and the rust off, and that was it. And then I started seasoning it. I didn't have to strip it down at all. I just started seasoning it right away. It's got a couple layers of seasoning on it now. It's it'll need a few more before we can do fun things with it. Well, fun like typical cast iron stuff, steaks and those type of things. But while I was futzing around with it, I noticed this tortillas fit flat in it. The large tortillas fit flat in it. So I'm going to take advantage of that and attempt to make a Taco Bell style Mexican pizza. Uh, we're not going to start with that guy though. We're going to start with the meat. Uh, if you're unfamiliar with the Mexican pizza, I've only ever had it one time. I wasn't a big fan. Um, it's had a rocky go of it. It got removed from the menu early on in COVID because Taco Bell downsized the menu, and then there was this big movement to bring it back, and it's been brought back. Um, I think it's kind of boring, personally. Not a huge fan of it, but I know basically what goes into it, so I'm going to try making it myself using those large tortillas. Those large tortillas. Uh, so it's two crispy flour tortillas with beans and taco meat in between them. And then it's topped with tomatoes, onions, cheese, sauce, and it's a little. The Taco Bell ones are real small. They're tiny little things. Um, so this one's going to be much bigger. But first things first, I need to cook my ground beef. It's the second packet of ground beef from Tuesday, which was already old then, so it's really on its last leg. I have to use it right now, or it's going in the garbage today. Um, it's it's over in the corner there. Uh, I had to preemptively open it because I was a little bit worried about it to give it a sniff test because it looks a little off. It's going a little bit gray. Not like fully gray, but it's not. Yeah, it's but it passed the sniff test. Um, if we get us over to the countertop, here it is. You can see it's especially in this corner, gone a little gray, but it's still pink around most of it. Um, and it, as like I said, oop, shoot, I poked it with my mic, the pop guard on my mic. So I'll have to figure out how to watch that. Like it, it definitely has a not so freshness to it, but it doesn't have like an offness. It just kind of smells oxidized. So if I get sick, I'll let you know. Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. Heat on that guy in the pan. Oop. Get him started. Move over to the stove, and I'm gonna wash my hands real quick because I got some meat juice on them. And that should be. I'm also, I think, gonna wipe down the countertop. Um, that should be the last time I have to touch the raw meat. So that's why I want to get that out of the way right away. And the pan's not even hot yet. I just slapped it in there to get it started. Uh, doing meat Taco Bell style really cooks it to death. So um, I'm not going to be making it quite as soupy as Taco Bell does. I've done that, and it's a thing. Some effort. Uh, I've got. Well, actually, I don't have onion powder. I have granulated onion or minced onion, which is like onion powder, but the bits haven't been dried or haven't been ground into a fine powder. They've just been dried. Um, but go to the countertop. Your typical spice blend for like a generic American style taco meat. I'm not going to pretend that this is Mexican style food. This is definitely not that. Uh, onion powder, garlic powder, cumin, lots of cumin. I actually picked up a brand new cumin because I thought I was going to use up all of my old cumin making this, and I need to find my old cumin. So this is the old cumin. And there's some in there, but you need quite a bit of it. So I might just use all of that, kill the cumin. And in that case, I've got a backup ready to go so that my spice rack isn't deficient for even a moment. Put the rest of these spices back. We also need hot pepper. I've got a couple options for that. I've got some chipotle powder. I've still got my vast supply of dried Thai chilies. I've also got all these serranos left over from when I made the lumpia, and they're still in good shape. So I might just mince one of those guys up and chuck it in there. We also have to consider that there's going to be a salsa element on top of the Mexican pizza. I've also got some other things that go into your typical like commercial style one. I've got MSG. I've got smoked paprika. Smoked paprika actually would be pretty nice, I think. Yeah, let's get the smoked paprika. Black pepper. I'm not going to move the pepper grinder over because it tends to drop a few grains every time I pick it up. Um, I'd rather have it drop some grains right over there where I know where they are. Oregano. We're going to kill the rest of my oregano here. This is the last of my dried oregano from last year. And I'm just going to use it up. Then I can reclaim the little bottle for other things. My new oregano, my Cuban oregano, my new herb for the year. I could, if I want more, go clip a leaf. It's probably big enough to take a leaf off of already. It's growing well, even though it's really young. Our pan is hot, so I'm going to start breaking this up. Our pan is hot, and our meat is starting to lose its water and render. So I'm going to start breaking this guy up, just like I've done a number of times now. Because we want browning. And you see, it's still nice and pink on the inside. It was just the surface that was starting to go gray. So definitely had to use it, but it wasn't like, oh my god, it's super spoiled. It's just that it was showing a sign that I needed to use it right away. I know it's not advisable to go by the sniff test for meats. For dairy, the sniff test is almost always your go-to. For meats, it's a little bit less reliable. But here we are. And this is low fat, which is good because I don't want this to be super oily. I want this to form a nice, easy to work with filling for my Mexican pizza interior. So yeah, other than some salt, I think that's the spices that are going into the meat. I'm gonna salt the meat. I bought kosher salt because I like using it because you can do a little pinch and a little drop and it works great. But I bought it before finishing out my last of my iodized salt, my just regular table salt. So it's been sitting in there with just a tiny dreg in it, and never gets used up. So I'm going to remember to use that so that I can get rid of it and free up some space in my cupboard. I wonder if they make iodized kosher salt because I like the texture of kosher salt. But iodide is a necessary nutrient. It says so right here on this container. Who am I to argue with a container of salt about what is necessary? Our toppings are going to be more fun. I kind of want to put some cheese inside. There's going to be beans inside, but I kind of want to put cheese inside as well to help glue the layers together. Because when I had my one tester Mexican pizza, it really wanted to break into two layers, even with the beans holding it together. So I've got some interesting cheeses. There definitely has to be cheese on top because we're making a pizza. So I got two fun cheeses here. I've got Oaxaca cheese, which came in this funny, like, braided rope that's been coiled up in this package. And this one, which you can see, we'll skip over to the countertop here. You can see it's got warning labels on it. This is called Scorpion Cheddar, which I assume means, yeah, it contains, and it's not in flakes where you can avoid them. It's powdered up. It's cheddar cheese with powdered Trinidad scorpion peppers in it. I've never had it before. It's still sealed. We'll see. I'll taste that and judge if I want to, how much of that I want to add. Let's get over here and get breaking on these little lumps of meat, because that's one thing about Taco Bell meat and taco meat in general. It's not in big, like when you ground beef, it's not in big chunks. It's in lots of little crumbles, held together more by the sauciness, the other ingredients, than by virtue of big, like, hamburger chunks. And also, I definitely want this to be fully cooked through, because it is a little bit old, and I want to make sure that it's 100% fully cooked. I wouldn't be making burgers out of this meat, for example, because I'd worry that the middle wouldn't be cooked enough. But since I'm crumbling it into little crumbles, I can ensure that it is all perfectly cooked through. And as it cooks and more of it renders, these little crumbles will be easier to break apart. What's happening in there is that the proteins, there's protein and fat and water in the meat. And as it cooks, the proteins start to break down and unwind. The molecules are little wound up balls of stuff. So they start to unwind, and there's enough water coming out that they mobilize and become very soluble. And then they start to grab onto each other. Once they're all unwound and frizzy, they start to grab onto each other, but they're still heating as well. So they're not just unwinding and falling apart. They're still at the stage where they can grab and kind of firm up. Eventually, they'll start to really break down. And that's what you get with like a slow-cooked, tough piece of meat, is those connective tissues, which are all proteins, just completely break apart, and then the remaining meat, which is the cell structure, just almost melts. We're not going for that stage. We're going for this to be very thoroughly cooked to the point where it's not holding together at all, which will make it easier to crumble into little tiny crumbles. There's probably going to be too much here for what I want to do with it. But it'll be a good leftover. I can make just normal tacos with it, things like that. I'm not adding any spices to it yet. I've added salt to help draw some of the water out. I haven't added any spices to it yet because I don't want to disrupt the color, because I want to make sure that I can see that it's all well cooked and starting to like get toasty brown, not just cooked gray. Although, as happened on Tuesday, the fact that I'm using a nonstick will inhibit the browning. So I'm giving it a pretty firm press down to help it along a little bit. Other ingredients I've got some tomato, because I'm going to make I'm not going to put a tomato sauce on my pizza, because that doesn't really make sense. But I want a tomatoey topping. And the tomatoey topping, and there's little chopped tomatoes on the Taco Bell version. I'm going to try making a salsa and then put that on top. But then we're going to toast the whole thing. So it's going to kind of be like a pizza sauce. So I've got tomato, I've got green pepper. I've got too many things here. I'm going to put the gentleman away. Thank you for your service, gentlemen. So I've got green pepper, I've got tomato. I've already eaten part of the tomato, so this is the rest of the tomato. Onion. I don't have a jalapeno. What I'm going to do for the pepper, the jalapeno pepper part, because I put a jalapeno pepper in my salsa, but I don't have one right now. I'm going to do part green bell pepper, part serrano. And I figure a jalapeno is kind of halfway between those guys. Oh, I need to grind up my cumin, and my grinder is still a little bit wet from having just been cleaned, so I should set that out where the air can get to it. Because whole cumin seeds, I don't want it. I want ground up cumin. Our beef is looking very well cooked through at this point. I'm pleased. So I will start adding some things to it. Now, garlic powder and onion powder are easy ways to add those savory ingredients directly to something like this. But I could also just do it with fresh garlic and fresh onion, which I have plenty of. I'm going to start with some MSG because I know the MSG is going in it, and I don't have a substitute for that. MSG is an interesting ingredient. It doesn't really do much. It tastes weird when you put it in something that's not already savory. It only really works when you put it in something that's already savory, and it kind of amps up the savoriness. By itself, it just tastes strange. It's an unusual thing. More than that, smoked paprika is amazing. By the way, if you're unfamiliar with smoked paprika, stuff is amazing. We're gonna go with the powders because I think it's easier at this point, and I can add fresh garlic to the salsa if I want that. The sizzling of my meat has changed tone as well, which suggests that the water is almost entirely out of it. I actually kind of want to turn it down a little bit. I'm not super worried about it burning, but I would like it to not burn if I could avoid it. It's looking like taco meat. It's getting that color of taco meat, mostly from the paprika. But it certainly doesn't smell like it. It actually smells amazing with just the paprika and those spices in it. Wow. But it's taken on that slightly reddish brown tone that you see in taco meat, and that comes from paprika, as far as I know. Okay, we're gonna put all of this oregano in there. There's a surprising amount of oregano. I never think of oregano in Mexican cooking. Every time I look up recipes, there it is, oregano. There's even a variety of oregano called Mexican oregano that they grow in Mexico. So you typically pair oregano with meat dishes. It has an enhancing flavor for meats. Now, if I was making this into proper Taco Bell meat, I would be adding some beef broth to this to help make it soupy and to enhance its meatiness a bit. But that's not the plan with this guy. I am going to add. Oh, that's actually quite a lot of cumin. Get over to the countertop. It's quite a bit of cumin, so I hope this is the right decision. Cumin's a pretty strong flavor, but it's also the most prominent flavor in Taco Bell's taco meat, so I have to include it. I much prefer fresh ground spices for these little seed spices. They have a much better flavor if you keep them whole. They keep ages when you keep them whole, and then they have a much more potent flavor when you grind them fresh just before using them. The pre-ground stuff is very convenient, but it's very much less shelf stable. I only use pre-ground stuff for things that are just really hard to deal with in their unground form. Ooh, we're actually a bit too dry, I think. Oh, and it immediately smells like taco meat. Strong flavor of cumin mixes with existing elements of the paprika and the beef. Our pan is quite dry. I didn't put any additional oil in this pan. I think I want a splash of water, actually. Do what I just said a minute ago and add some broth would be good, but I don't have any ready. All I've got is water. I've got some ramen flavor packets. I'm adding half a cup of water. Because I think our meat is too dry now. But that dryness was exactly what I was looking for yesterday, or not yesterday, Tuesday when I was making the bulgogi, which I was told is not real bulgogi because it doesn't have a pear in it. So I guess I'll have to modify my recipe to include a pear. So that right now, oops, I was in the wrong angle. That right now, this in the pan here, this is pretty solid taco meat as far as I'm concerned. If you were just making tacos, I'd stop here and say, "Great, you've succeeded. You've made a delicious Tex-Mex flavored taco filling." I got oregano all over my counter or on the stovetop. You've made a delicious Tex-Mex filling. Go ahead and make your tacos. Go nuts. Unfortunately, we are not doing that. I did forget to add some black pepper. Black pepper will give this a little bit more pop. I should also taste it before I declare it good. Taste as you go. Tastes like taco meat. It's not super strong, actually, for all the spices I threw in there, which is good. It's also not super dried out, which is good. Okay, we're going to set that guy aside, and we're going to go on to beans. And I'm not making my own refried beans from scratch. I'll do it someday, not today. Today I'm using canned refried beans. Actually, I'm not going to get out a second pan. I'm going to... Here's what we're going to do. Turn the heat back on, bring this guy back onto the heat. I've done this before. It's a quick way to make an easy taco filling that you can save and use multiple times. Is to just take your refried beans. You can see the rings in there from when it was filled by a machine. Need to open both ends of this. It's got a vacuum seal. You're opening something in a can that doesn't let go when you try to dump it out. Just open the bottom. So I'm just cooking the beans directly into the meat. And I'm switching a spatula for this because I need something with more of a fold to it, not so much a flipper. I'll get this hot and well combined. The pastiness here is actually exactly what I'm looking for, because this stuff is going to have to glue together our tortillas when we do construction. So it needs to be a paste that I can A, spread, and that B, is sticky enough to hold the tortillas together, including when we start cutting them into slices and trying to eat them. So it doesn't look so great, but it should, in theory, taste great. So I'll get my taster spoon, take a little glob. Okay, it needs to cook a little bit, for sure. The beans are actually the dominant flavor right now, and they just taste like they just came out of the can and haven't heated through yet, which is literally what's happened. Although they are fully cooked, so I suppose I can just take them off the heat now, because the whole thing is going to go in the oven as well. So let's just get that to the side. I'll call that good enough. The stuff has a million uses later on. I could make burritos with it. I could make tacos with it. I could make other Mexican flavored things with it. It needs a little salt. Oh, I was just talking about how there's also nothing spicy in it right now. I was just talking about how I wanted to use up this drum of iodized salt instead of always going for the kosher salt. There's also nothing spicy in it right now, so I think I want to give it a little goose with some chipotle pepper, which I'll just stir in. And there should be enough residual heat in it now to get that pepper to incorporate well. I'm not going for bland here. I'm not going for actual Taco Bell. I'm going for, I'm making it myself and I'm making it better. In theory, in hope. Okay. Now I'm going to set that aside. Let's get the plate out of the way. Put my can opener away because I don't need another can opener. You know, I bought 2 cans of beans because I wasn't sure if one was going to be enough for that amount of meat. Turns out it was plenty. Beans go a long way, which is good because they're also tasty and they tasty and filling. They're perfect for times like these when the food is suddenly becoming very expensive everywhere. Uh, Empty bottle of cumin. Doing a quick little cleanup of my ingredient corner here. Okay. Here's the tricky part. I've got lots of tortillas so I can take multiple stabs at this. The tortillas in a Mexican pizza are flour tortillas, like these, but they are not soft flour tortillas. They are crisp flour tortillas, or they're supposed to be crisp. They often go soggy by the time you get to them, which is a strange conundrum. And I am not entirely clear as to how they accomplish it. So I'm going to heat one of these on a dry pan to see if I can get the surface to start to crisp up. I've attempted to fry my own tostadas in the past, and they were really well crisped around the edges, but they were very soggy in the middle. And I assume that means I was too cool or too much oil or something. I wasn't deep frying them. I was trying to pan fry them. But I've never done anything like that with flour tortillas, so I'm not sure how this is going to work. In theory, this should be fine because the pan is seasoned. I didn't add any oil to it, but there's the season oil on the pan, which should prevent us from having a stickage issue. Of course, the pan was room temperature, so that's going to take a minute for that big chunk of iron to gradually come up to heat. I actually don't want it to come up crazy fast. So I'm going to put it a little below medium to try to help it heat evenly. In fact, okay, well, it's already warming up. The tortilla is very supple. If I was going to be making burritos, perfect. The tortilla is warm and supple and ready to go. Hi, welcome in. You can see in the back corner there our taco meat and bean mixture. And now I'm moving on to seeing how to make crispy flour tortillas. I've got 9 tries. Well, I need 2 in order to make this thing, so I've got potentially 7 failures. And I'm heating up a dry cast iron. This is my new cast iron. This was the impetus for this whole project. This and the fact that I had the ground beef from Tuesday that was just about to go off. But this pan fits a whole large tortilla. So this is my plan, is to use this pan. Tortillas are, of course, not perfectly circular. There's a slight variation in them. So that's also a concern if I want to construct this thing. But yeah, so if you have any insights about how to make a flour tortilla have a crisp to it, I'm thinking dry heat is the way to go. I don't know how they do it at Taco Bell, but that's my thought, is dry heat. Because I think if I do oily heat, it'll just soak into it and make it oily. Um, and if I oil the pan, fry it. We'll see if I oil the pan and it doesn't work, then I can't get the oil back out of the pan to try dry heat. So I'm going to try dry first. And if it doesn't work with one of them, then I will try oiling it and throwing it in there to fry. I don't have enough oil to do a deep fry, if that's what you meant. Nor do I have a pot large enough. It would literally be this same pan, but I would fill it with super hot oil. I'll try that next if this doesn't work. But I wanted to try this first because, again, once I oil the pan, I can't unoil the pan. So at the moment, the pan is on with nothing in it. And I'm going to get it hot enough to make me feel like I'm going to do something when I throw a tortilla in there. And then I'm going to throw a tortilla in there. Which we've just done. So, yeah. I mean, the idea is for it to dry out because it's got to have a crisp to it. Things are crisp when they're dried through. I don't want it to be chewy. If you've never had the Mexican pizza, what we're making is a Taco Bell Mexican pizza, but better. If you've never had the Mexican pizza, it's two crispy flour tortilla circles with meat and beans in between them, and then topped with taco sauce, cheese, onions, tomatoes, and they used to have black olives. I don't know if they brought those back because it was the only thing on the menu that used them. And I don't have any black olives because I don't think that goes with it. But so I've got the meat, which I should be putting on real low just to keep warm. I don't want it seizing up on me. I'm just going to have that burner on super low. And sort of mound it up, try to maintain its thermal mass. As always, that stuff doesn't look so good. But yeah, so what I'm doing is that stuff, which is a mixture of ground beef and beans and a bunch of spices. It's got garlic powder, onion powder, MSG, chipotle, smoked paprika, freshly ground cumin, salt, black pepper. That stuff's going to be in between when we get two good ones for our tortillas. It's going to be in between our two tortillas. And then on top, I'm planning on doing a fresh salsa cover it with cheese. I had to move the cheeses because I was doing tortilla stuff. Here's the cheeses I got. I got Oaxaca, which sounds a lot like mozzarella in its description, and it claims to be quite melty as well. So I'm hoping that will act like mozzarella, and it'll be a good topping cheese. And this stuff, which came with 2 warning stickers, because they really wanted you to be warned. Scorpion cheddar, which I will taste test before I do anything interesting with it, because of those warning stickers. It's got Trinidad scorpion peppers in it, which are very hot. So, yes, we had an interesting thing at the beginning, and nobody was here watching. And now I'm doing a boring thing where I'm just heating up a tortilla on the stovetop, and people have shown up. So that's great timing. I love how this all works out. This would be a thing in a proper show where I would cut to the success or failure of this endeavor. I don't know. Whoa! We're getting a balloon. Okay, well, it's hard on one side, but it's also a balloon. Which I don't think I want. I've poked some holes in it. Oh, I've got it in the wrong spot. I need a quick button for that. So it's hard and crispy on the side that was down, and obviously browning. But it rapidly formed a balloon when I flipped it. Oaxaca's Mexican string cheese. Well, string cheese is just mozzarella cheese that's been pulled into logs, so that's perfect. I need something on top of this actually to hold it down if I want to crisp it up. Um, hmm. Now see my other pan. This is my, for comparison, this is my other cast iron pan. Um, it's small. It's not tall enough to press that thing. So I'm not sure what I can put there that is heat safe that will press down the thing. Yes, this is a cast iron. I got this cast iron at Goodwill. It was in fantastic shape. It had a few little rust spots that I sanded off, and a little bit of crusty stuff on it that I scraped off. But I didn't have to strip it down to bare bones. I just had to sort of sand off the few icky bits, and then go right into reseasoning. Um, Whoa! I don't think dry pan is the way to go. Um, but while I was working with it, I noticed that it was so large that I could put these big tortillas right in the pan, and they fit. These big tortillas that I got for 50 cents for the whole packet. Uh, ah, it's hot. Uh, so I was very pleased to find that big pan. Now I have 2 different sizes of pan. I actually like this one even better than the small one. Uh, so far, I've only used it literally this one time. This is the first thing I've done with it is make this tortilla, which is very hot. So you can see it has shrunk a bit from the uncooked one and developed these big brown spots. It's also reasonably stiff, which is actually kind of what I was going for. So I think if I did because they clearly have a difference in the sides. I think if I did this side first, this plan would work. Because that was the side that ballooned up. I'm going to try this again. This might be our first success. We're going to be stacking stuff on top of these guys anyways, so I'm going to throw another one in. Like I said, I've got here now. This is cooled off a bit. I'll hold it up. You can see it has become pretty rigid, which is exactly what I was going for. It's still got a bit of a tender feel to it. I just didn't like that I had to poke these balloons. These were the balloons that lifted the whole thing up. I didn't like that I had to poke those. I think my stuff's going to leak out. I'll hang on to that one. See what this one does. Let's get back over there. It's developing some balloons. So it's that one side of them that really wants to do balloons. But yeah, this isn't a total failure. I think I'm going to stick with this at the minute. I would like to get these crisp enough that I can feel like I can oil the bottom of one of them, put it in there, and that it won't soak into them, and that they'll stay somewhat crisp. Ooh, that one got a little richly colored. I think we got to turn that down a shade. That one went a little over. Some bubbles are inevitable, but I want to minimize it. This one here, like ballooned halfway up the pan when it first flipped it. I'd like to keep them sort of straight, if possible, because I want to layer these things, so they have to be. I think this one might be a lost cause, though. This looks a little past crispy and into burnt. So that one might be a loss. This one, so far, the first one, is is kind of exactly what I was looking for. I bet you if I baked these with like a brick on top of them, it'd be perfect. But yeah, Goodwill pan. I have great time at the Goodwill. They got good stuff there. This was actually not my local Goodwill. This was the Goodwill in another town nearby. Um, a little ways to the north. I was just passing by and said, "Oh, Goodwill. I'll pop my nose in there and see what they got." And they had a really nice pan, so I grabbed it. And unlike the previous pan I got at Goodwill, this one's not cracked. I need a place to put these when I take them out of the pan. Keep taking them out and then touching them with my fingers and being like, "Ow, that's hot." This pan was now. I've talked to the people at Goodwill about it because most of their stuff is marked down a lot, and their cast iron never seems to be marked down a ton. They deliberately don't mark cast iron down as much because a lot of people go there to buy cast iron, to refurbish it, like they buy the cruddy cast iron to refurbish it and then resell it at full price. So if you see one at Goodwill, you got to pick it up quick because it's not going to be there next time you come back. This was $17, I think. So it wasn't a massive savings, but it was a noticeable savings, considering it's a very large size pan. It's currently my widest pan total. It's wider than any of my other cookware. Oh, fly. Okay, so that guy was too hot. But you can see it's still got the crisp rigidness to it, which is what I was going for. So I think our dry pan method is working. I just need to control my heat. And let it maybe flip it more frequently so it doesn't have a chance to burn quite so much. But we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm going to stick with this as well. Okay. Since this one I think is a lost cause, I want to try parts of it that aren't burned to see how tough they are, because that's another concern. They might end up being too crunchy. So that's pretty good. And it breaks. It's got a crisp to it. But it's not crisped all the way. It's crisped enough that it's breaking into shards. But it's not actually crisped all the way through. There's a tiny little core of some chewy dough still in there. So that's what I was going for. Got this extra one here. I'll figure out what to do with that one. How are you, Pan? Okay. A little bit less heat is good. It's also not ballooning up immediately. Oh, I've got the wrong angle on. I just tossed another one in there. And it's not ballooning up as fast as that burned one did. And it's hopefully not burning either. It's coloring quite rapidly on the bottom, so I will have to flip it quite soon. Oh, and it's starting to develop a balloon. Let's flip it. And let some steam out of that balloon. But I think this is actually doing what I wanted to do. They're not sticking, which is good. See, I can slide it around quite easily. While they're still blazing hot, they have a little bit of suppleness to them still. But once they cool off to room temperature, even at above room temperature, they're quite stiff, which is what I'm going for. So I think this is our method. Again, I have no idea how Taco Bell does it. I assume they have a. Actually, I assume they come to the stores pre-made and pre-crisped. They probably aren't starting with a regular flour tortilla. There's probably a custom designed flour tortilla that's made so that it's crisp. Because it's a fast food place, so it's all about that assembly line. Everything's got to be quick, quick, quick. So what's new with you while I'm making tortillas? Oh, I have it's a little bit of news. It's not big news. It's the small kind of news. Um, I applied for a new job at the library. It's exciting. I love libraries. I loved working at the library. I worked at the library years and years ago. Um, I loved working at the library. So I'm hoping that will come through. And one of my friends works at a different nearby library. So I had a reference from someone and used to work at this library. So I have it's not a, it's a personal reference that is a recommendation for librarying, which I think is a good combination. Um, this one is doing what I want them all to do. I'll use those as a support base here. I'm going to take that one off. I'm going to drop it a bit. Important step of the recipe is to take it off and drop it awkwardly in between the pan and the plate, and then shuffle it over onto the plate. Okay, so I'm going to do one more because I think that was perfect. So I want one more perfect one. So yeah, I'm optimistic about my new job prospect. It's also super convenient if I do get it. Well, funny story. It's going to be super convenient. Our library is currently not in its own building right now. The building is being renovated. The library is halfway across town in a partially abandoned insurance building. And they've been there for a little bit. So, bubble. Okay, I think that when the bubbles appeared, flipping it at that point. Oh, I did it on the wrong side. No, I didn't. This one's bubbling a lot more. There you go. I guess poking it just to let the steam come out on one side is what I have to do. Chicken pot pie. Ooh, that sounds lovely. Uh, I've never made a chicken pot pie. I've had a chicken pot pie. I've never made one myself. Um, I did make a kakaliki pie once, which is kind of like a chicken pot pie. That was delicious. If you're familiar with kakaliki, And you'll know exactly what I mean when I say cock-a-leaky pie, because it's literally chicken and leek in a pie. Are you still warm? You're not really that warm. So on Tuesday, right toward the end there, I don't know if you saw it, a guy came in. I assume it was a guy. A person came in. Um, said asked me if I put pear in my bulgogi, and I said no. And they said, well, then it's not bulgogi. Um, and then accused me of cooking weird fusion things, which of course I do. I'm not ashamed of cooking weird fusion things. Who would be? Fusion food is delicious. Uh, but it made me think. Well, yeah, if you're making proper bulgogi with the sliced steak, there's a grated pear in the marinade. I didn't do a marinade, but I could still incorporate the pear, and it might give the finished thing a more like unctuousness because there's a lot of pectin in a pear. So it'll form. It should form almost like a jelly, uh, giving it this. I don't know. It's an interesting idea of trying to incorporate pear into that ground beef recipe, which is not. It's already not proper bulgogi, but it got me thinking. Um, now I don't have. I don't know that I'll be able to find proper Asian pear, but I'll just get a normal pear, a regular, like a European style pear, if I can't. Uh, okay, I'm going to take the heat off. I'm going to let this guy rest with the heat off there. Well, no, the pan's got enough thermal mass, it's probably going to burn it. I'm going to take it off. Okay, I think I've got two good ones. Those last two. I think those were both just exactly what I was looking for. So I'm going to stop doing testers, and move the cast iron because I want to use this. Well, no, I don't need the burner for anything else just yet. So it's going to sit there and cool off. We're going to come back over to the countertop. And I'm going to make a very coarse salsa. And then we'll think about these cheeses. So the cheeses are going to set on the side. The salsa is a little bit what I'm worried about overall because it's quite acidic and it's going to go on top of our thing, which is going to go back in that pan. Now, the salsa is going to be on top, not down at the bottom where the metal is. So it should be okay, but there's always a risk. And if I get acid on that pan, then I'll have to start seasoning it over again. Tomatoes are very acidic. This tomato, this was an amazing tomato. Little blemish on it there. It's so dry on the inside. I cut into it, and instead of having these cavities be full of liquid, they were just full of nothing. There's just air in there. And the seeds are on these nice, squidgy little like capsules. I wish all tomatoes were like this, for slicing at least. Where is my cutting board? Cutting board got put away. I don't know what variety it is. It was just listed as heirloom tomato, and it was imported from Canada. So it's a greenhouse tomato of some sort. Um, I don't know. The problem I always have with tomatoes when I want to take a slice of tomato is that they make a like a puddle when you cut into them. All right, I have a hard time talking at the same time that I'm sharpening a knife because I'm counting strokes. My brain can't count strokes and talk about something else at once. And you get to this part where it's just back and forth for a while, and then I can start talking again. I'm doing this a lot right now, more than I usually would, because I want to make sure to get into that tomato without crushing it. So I want the knife to be as optimally sharp as we can get it. So, moment of truth. Ooh, perfect. And see, it's not even there's still a little bit of liquid there, but there's no big puddle when I cut into that. I love it. If it wasn't already so late to start tomatoes, I would dig the seeds out of this one and plant them and try to make this the variety of tomato that I have forever. So I am going for a coarse chop here, and there's got to be enough. I'll save the rest of that. I want enough to make a good topping for the top, but I don't want it to drown it. So I actually probably should have stopped at 2 slices. I was just excited about how much I was slicing and how nice this tomato is to slice. And I went a little over with it. So I might just have to have that slice as a snack. Because the Taco Bell version of this has just like a little sprinkling of diced tomatoes on top. And I'm going more than that. I'm making a generous topping. But I think that, oh God, this tomato is so nice. I just can't get over how nice this tomato is. So I think that guy's going to be a snack, but I'm going to save it on a plate before I dive in on it in case I do want more tomato in my dish here. Next up, onion. And here's a question. When you're using half an onion, which half do you use? If this is your onion, do you split it this way so that you get half the stem and half the root? Or do you split it this way so you use either the stem end or the root end and save the other one? Because I'm only going to use part of this onion, but I'm not sure what the optimal way to take half an onion is. I've done both, and I can't really tell the difference. Honestly, I can't tell that there's any tangible difference down the line. They both kind of dry out on the cut side, whichever angle it is. I think if you cut it this way and then used the root end, it would dry out even faster because this side's already going quicker. But when you cut it this way, it gives it a really big exposure. So it dries out pretty much either way. cutting it the long way. Oop. I'm going to use the side that rolled off the side. And I have to take the ends off of it anyways. And I'm going to lose the outer layer because it's a little wrinkly, and I think it'll be tough. And it's more onion than I probably would put in a normal salsa, but this is also a pizza topping, and I like onions on my pizza, so I'm going to get these broken up because they're not going to be sauteed. They're going to go in there raw and then bake. So I want lots of surface area, so I want to make sure that all the little flakes are separated. Oh, so not so fun story, kind of fun story, but more annoying story from today. There's an air show in town this weekend, and today the Jets arrived to practice, and they practice right over the city, right overhead. So you hear a roar, and then you look up and you go, "Ooh, look! It's the Blue Angels," or whatever they were. You know, they're those blue and yellow stunt jets. And you're like, "Ooh, that's so cool!" And then 5 minutes later, you hear the same roar, and you look up, and it's the same jets doing a different thing, headed the opposite direction. And then they do that for hours, directly over the city at low altitude. Set off car alarms and all that nonsense. I don't know why they do it right over the city, but hey, who am I to argue, I guess. Okay. I want green pepper as well. Green pepper is not an ingredient that goes on the authentic Taco Bell Mexican pizza. Nor is it an ingredient that I typically put in my salsas, but it is an ingredient that I always put on my pizzas. So I'm including some in the salsa because the salsa is going to be our pizza topping. I mean, they practice so I can look up and go, ooh, but like everybody in the city heard them the first time they flew over at low altitude in their jets and looked up and went, ooh. And then they kept doing it. And then they took a break for lunch. And then they came back and kept doing it. I mean, I get it. They need to practice, but I don't know. It got old real quick. People with pets, some of my friends with pets, definitely noticed a problem. It's scary for the pets. One of my friends has some PTSD. I didn't hear from him today, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was setting him off too. It just seems inconsiderate. Also, someone told me that it was literally set like the booms of the jets going over were literally setting off car alarms in town. So it wasn't just a show; it was a interactive event. Thankfully, they have stopped. It was loud even inside the house. It was loud inside a large grocery store when I was there today. Uh, okay, that's plenty of salsa. It's the beautiful colors of the Mexican flag: white, red, and green. I do want a spicy component. There's a little bit of spice in the meat, but not a ton. And I've got a bunch of these serrano peppers, so I'm going to put half of one of these serrano peppers in there. De-seeded. We'll get out our little spoon. That's, as far as I am concerned, that's the easy way to de-seed a pepper. Split it in half and scrape it down with a spoon. Oh, this is my compost bowl. I save up all my little scraps while I'm cooking, and then add it to the big bucket at the end of the day. The friend I'm composting for has complained that I'm not producing enough compost. I don't know how I could produce more compost, other than be deliberately wasteful when I'm trimming things. I just don't make enough compost, I guess. Oh well. Okay. That's my salsa topping. Let's see how this pan is doing. It's still warm, but not blazing hot, so I'm happy with the progress of that cooling down. Because I want to put the tortillas back in there because I want to build it directly in there so that I can put it under the broiler. Okay. Let's get the tomato put away. Let's get out a new bag and get the bell pepper put away. I'm not. Should I add garlic to the salsa? Currently, it's just a fresh salsa. Nothing else going on. I could add a pinch of salt. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt. It's got onion in it. I'm gonna add a dash of garlic powder to it. I don't think I'm gonna add fresh garlic. I could slice up some fresh garlic and put it in there as like a bonus topping. The thing is, I don't think this is going to be in the oven long enough for the garlic to get all sweet and jammy. Because we don't have to bake this like a pizza. It's assembly, and then it's going in there long enough to melt the cheese that we put over the top. Speaking of which, I need to break into these cheeses and see what they're like all up in there. And I really want to try this hot cheese. So I'll use a small knife instead of a large knife. So, taking bets. Predictions on how hot this cheese actually is with these labels on it. Keeping in mind that we're in the Midwest, where people think mayonnaise is spicy sometimes. Once upon a time, I would be confident that anything I got around here would not be spicy. But true spicy food has come home to roost, even here in the American upper Midwest. So there's a chance that this is as spicy as the labels claim. Alternatively, the labels could be all hype to get me to buy it, and it's not so spicy. It's also hard to open. I don't like this style of shrink wrap. It's really hard to get into. Especially since the cheese is slightly crumbly. Take a corner off. Moment of truth. Taste test. Okay, it's got some heat. Hits your tongue immediately. Immediately has heat. It's a sharp cheddar as well. Oh, I swallowed it and it. Oh boy. Whew, they weren't kidding. Oh, they weren't kidding. That's a hot cheese. Wow. Okay. That's a hot cheese. Pardon me a moment while I treat myself with a little bit of milk. Oh boy. Okay, eating that straight is not a good idea. Ooh boy. Okay, that stuff's got a kick. Oh boy. Whew. Okay. So it's a good thing I underspiced everything else, because if I want to include this cheese in my mix, this angry cheese, I wouldn't want anything else in there to amplify it up. Speaking of which, I didn't taste this after I added chipotle. I'm going to take a quick taster of my mix. Okay. 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 Yeah. That's hot. You can't eat. This is not an eating cheese. This is an ingredient cheese. You add this to something else. It's not just heat either. It's got a lot of cheddar flavor. It's a sharp. It's actually a sharp cheddar. And it had a pretty strong flavor of the pepper. It had a prominent, like, fruity note to it. But it's got a bite. you like hot cheese, take a look for this. North Country, proudly made in Wisconsin, Scorpion Cheddar. It'll bite you back. It's got a sting. Ha ha. Scorpion. I get it. I understand. I understand the joke. Ha 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 ha. Why do you get this open? I thought these had like a peel corner, but this one doesn't. None of the corners want to peel. Where's my little scissors? I'm gonna walk into the other room. I'm gonna go looking for my little scissors, which I had in the kitchen for a while. Well, these are normal sized scissors. I guess I'm coming back with a normal sized scissors. I wonder where I put my little scissors. I don't have a real kitchen shears. I just have various sizes of scissors, and I was keeping the small one in here. Okay. Well, this has the texture of a mozzarella or a string cheese or like a provolone. Interesting shape. Got some of my hot cheese right on it right away. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do I want to grate this or do I want to slice this? How big? So it would be. I could it's too lumpy to slice, I think. Um, okay, okay, okay. I think we're at the point of I want to assemble my thing. Now, while I was picking up, I bought a backup today in case the ground beef was a total loss. And it was beef chorizo. I was thinking that could be a decent stand-in for like a pepperoni. The thing is, proper chorizo, like authentic chorizo, isn't firm enough to slice. It's more like a paste. It's a soft sausage. So I could do like little lumps of it on the top, like sausage lumps. That could be neat. But there's quite a lot of meat in there already, and the real like Taco Bell version doesn't have any toppings that are meaty. So, what do you think? It's the same brand, actually. Interesting. It's the same brand as the Oaxaca cheese, um, and they both say gluten-free. I don't think either of these ingredients have ever had gluten in them in the history of their creation. So I'm not sure that's much of a claim to fame. Um, Oven on to 350. I'm going to do some assembly over here in the pan. I need a scooper. Now our stuff here has dried out on the surface, but it's still nice and warm in the middle. So we'll take a big dollop of that and start pressing it out into our... I think I'm going to skip the chorizo because it's going to have quite a lot of meat in it already. So reading about the Mexican pizza, the community here in America that successfully lobbied for its return to the Taco Bell menu was the Indian immigrant community, like from India. Taco Bell has always had this sort of strange status as being the most vegetarian friendly of all the fast food options, because you can get beans in place of meat on pretty much any item. And since everything is assembled just before service, you're pretty confident that you didn't get meat in anything. And I guess the Mexican pizza, this thing that we're making now, the way Taco Bell makes it, is similar to like some sort of comforting Indian flavor. I'm not sure what it's like, and I'm not sure that it's like anything specific in Indian cuisine. Mine certainly isn't. So, thick layer of our bean meat mixture in between two crisped up flour tortillas that I'm going to firmly press together. Topped with my fresh salsa mixture here. And yes, I did not include cilantro in my salsa. And I didn't substitute in for parsley this time either, because it would just be for looks. And I don't really want to go for the looks element for the parsley. I don't need a leafy element here. That was just about right for the amount of topping here. Stop falling off the sides, please. Thankfully, our pan is all cooled off. So that was just about exactly the right amount. I think if I had just a smidge more, well, no, actually, I don't think I even need a smidge more. I think that's perfect because I don't want total coverage. I think that came out perfectly. I was afraid I would have too much. But that is actually just perfect. And then we have the question of how I want to apply the cheese. I should grate it because I don't think I can effectively slice. This Oaxaca isn't in a ball like a mozzarella would be, so I don't think I can effectively slice it. So I think we're going to have to grate it. I was running a little bit from that hot cheese. I just wiped my nose and then touched stuff. So I'm going to wash my hand before I handle the cheese anymore, to not contaminate the cheese. That's not a good idea. Now, the missing ingredient is there's some kind of sauce that Taco Bell puts on their Mexican pizza, and it honestly looks a lot like the taco sauce that comes in their little packets. But it's like a little bit thicker, so I don't know. They probably mix some mayonnaise into it. Um, I have authentic Taco Bell in packet little packets. Let's come over here. Move that package. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to end up using the chorizo today. I'll save that rather than open it and do something just small with it. Uh, we'll move our scorpion cheese. There. Because I want to grate this Oaxaca over here. I'm actually going to use the little dish, the little square dish that comes with the grater. So I have better control over it when I put it actually on the pizza, because I don't want it to spill over the sides too much. I want it to be mostly contained to the top. And I also don't know how well this stuff is going to grate, so I want to do it under controlled. It grates well. Wow, this stuff is. I was just about to say this stuff is great. This stuff is great. I would say it grates more easily than a low moisture mozzarella. You know, I haven't tasted it yet. Mild, slightly cheesy. Tastes kind of like string cheese. Tastes kind of like mozzarella. I'm still reasonably certain that string cheese is just mozzarella that's been stretched out so that so it forms those sort of fibrous strings. Okay, well that was easy. It is sticking to itself a lot more in its shredded state. So that's a little bit of a feature. Uh, so I would say if you're using this the way I'm using it, grate it in small amounts and apply it rather than grating a big pile of it, because I think the big pile will just glue itself back together. I also feel like it's going to melt faster than mozzarella does, which could be a good thing since this doesn't need to be baked through. It's already essentially cooked. Uh, we just really need the toppings to melt in, set in place. Maybe take the edge off of the onions just a little bit. God, I need just a smidge more. Fragments. I need just a tiny smidge more. Well, I'm going for more than a smidge. Because I like cheese. Okay. Okay. And we will clean up the little bits that have fallen to the sides, because I am afraid they're going to burn in place when I actually put this in the oven. Because, yep, it's going in the oven. We're not just doing a broil. I've got the oven on at 350. And I want to add my hot cheese, too. And get the stuck-on bits from the inside of the grater out while we're at it. Because I bought this cheese for this. It's crumbly. It's a little bit crumbly. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna break a chunk off and literally do a crumble with it. And we're going to remember to thoroughly wash our hands, because this stuff is hot like a chili pepper. Okay, let me thoroughly wash my hands before I forget. Okay, so I'm not putting chorizo on top. I'm not putting any toppings, meaty toppings on top. It's basically a cheese pizza, except that the meat is inside the crust, which is something, frankly, I'm surprised that real pizza places haven't done already. Like, stuffed crust is a thing, and even that double layer is a thing. But I'm surprised they don't just have pizzas with meat jammed inside the crust all the way through. I also have no idea how long to bake this, so I'm going to do it. Since it's all cooked, I'm going to do it until the cheese looks good on top, and that's going to be it. And we're going to get out a pot holder. Not hot right now, but it's going to be, so I want to make sure that I have one ready. And also, I'm sticking my hand into the hot oven, so I don't want to accidentally touch the grate. So let's get her in there. And that's the neat thing about having a big cast iron pan. It can go directly in the oven. It may go quickly, and since everything in it is already cooked, it just needs to be heated through and the cheese melted. So we're going to check it frequently, but not instantly. I don't need to check it instantly. I'm going to take this opportunity to clean up a little bit. This this scorpion cheese kind of scares me after that little nibble. It was hot stuff. The Oaxaca cheese did feel softer than mozzarella. So I do expect that it's probably going to melt quickly. But also, it wasn't fridge cold when I was working with it just now. So I'm not sure how it compares, because I'm most accustomed to handling cheeses that are fridge cold. This one was sitting out on the counter long enough that it's up to just about room temp, which made it soft. The other thing that they put on top of the Mexican pizza at Taco Bell is green onions, little sliced up green onions. which I didn't include here because there was quite a lot of regular white onion. But it's not too late, because green onions don't take very long to cook, and they're nice when they've got a nice freshness too. So I could conceivably slice one up, chuck it in there after the cheese has started to melt. I want to get that stuff. One of my Pyrex lids melted in the microwave. I've never seen that happen before. And it makes I'm down a lid again. I'm running out of, I got a lot of these little dishes, but I'm running out of lids. Usually it's because they crack, but that one just melted. It was only in there for 2 minutes, and it just bleh. I've also got a lime here. I was thinking I didn't want to put lime juice on it and then put it in the cast iron pan. I think I'm going to squeeze some lime juice on it after it comes out. This lime might not even be juicy enough because I accidentally left it out after I cut it. I made a drink with the other part. Let's take our first peek at our monstrosity. The cheese is definitely melting, but I'm not worried about it at this stage. Oh yeah, I was just saying I lost a lid, and now I don't have the correctly sized container. I'm gonna have to use too large of a container just because it has a lid for this stuff. Which I want to get in here now because it's already trying to dry out, and I don't want this turning into a dried out horror brick. But this is the right amount to put in one of the small containers, but the small containers don't have any lids anymore. That's something I see at Goodwill a lot too, is the bottoms of Pyrexes with no lids. I think that happens to a lot of people. The lids are not really all that durable, and the glass dishes underneath them are. Once the lid is gone, it's just a kind of awkwardly shaped glass bowl. I need to find a place that just sells lids and stock up. Well, I've got an empty container with a lid. So this time I've still got something to go with, but and I've got 2 tortillas left here. This one's they're very actually they've gone very crisp. If I had like a dip, that'd be great. Cut those into triangles and do it like a dip. That'd be good. Let's peek at our pizza. I'm actually going to pull it out and show it to you. So as you can see, it's all melty, but it's not browning yet. So back in it goes. And I pretty much just want to put it in there until the cheese on top starts to develop a few little spots. And that should be the end of the world. That's the wrong phrase. I like this Oaxaca cheese, though. It's good. I'll have to remember that and go back for it in the future. Keep putting stuff away. Lessen my cleanup later, as long as I'm standing around waiting for something. I've got a lot of little bits and ends and pieces and leftovers and all sorts of stuff. I've got to go through this weekend and just use leftover bits of stuff. No new cooking, just recombining old cooking. Bowl, put all my spoons in there to soak a little bit. I've also got a lot of serrano peppers still. I kind of went over. They were so cheap. I kind of went overboard with them when I bought them for those dynamite lumpia. I'm also starting to feel like Thursday is not a great day for streaming this content. I'm not sure what is a good day other than Tuesday seems to work. People show up on Tuesday and I do stuff. Ooh. Okay. I took a peek at it. I might end up having to do a broil to get the top to brown. It does. It honestly doesn't smell like much. When I open it up, what I smell are the green peppers cooking first and foremost. Which is interesting. I thought I would be smelling the spices in the meat mixture, or at least if the green peppers are starting to make themselves known, the onions would do at the same time. Boy, it's a good thing I didn't eat a ton today because this is also going to be a leftovers thing. I might have a slice now and a slice for a snack down the line. Um, oh, but it should only be a few more minutes, and then I'll pull it out, and then I'll have the fun of trying to get it out of that pan and onto a plate, which I should get ready before we get to that phase. So, largest, flattest serving plate I can muster. The white plate is sadly not quite large enough, I think. Is this going to brown, or does that cheese not brown? That's the other question. Maybe that cheese just doesn't brown. That's a possibility. I'm going to use Google. Melts easily. All it says is melts easily. Similar to low moisture mozzarella, which I already kind of knew. Or unaged Monterey Jack. Interesting. Okay. It doesn't have any notes about whether or not it browns, so I'm eyeballing it. I probably want to pull it out before the edges, because the exposed edges of the tortilla are still exposed. I probably want to pull it out before they become grossly overdone. So that's, I guess, is where I should be testing. So let's pick it up, bring it out here. Look at it. Well, okay, the little lumps of scorpion cheese have sunk in. They were standing up before, so I think that they've melted. My tortilla is still a little bit supple. The whole thing still slides around. It's not stuck to the bottom at all, which is good. What do you think? Should I go further? I could just zap it with a broiler, try to get the top to start browning, because I think it's because it's hot. We're not going for. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Put it in there, get it centered, crank it to broil, the grill if you're British, and this shouldn't even take a minute, honestly. The rack is not high; it's down. It's in the middle rack, so we're not getting totally blasted by the top grill. But yeah, so we're just about there. I don't think it's quite. I don't think the broiler has quite kicked up fully. Um, the broilers. I don't know if this is universal, but on mine, it's interesting because it's both a temperature setting and it switches to the top coil. It doesn't just turn the top coil on and leave it on, which is what I would think you would want to do with it, because if you're doing something like that, you just want blasting heat. But it's also a temperature setting. If it gets to its set temperature, it'll switch off. The temperature setting is very high. It's the highest setting on the dial. Probably a safety feature so that it doesn't just overheat to the point where it melts. Uh, but again, I've never done this with Oaxaca cheese. I don't know if it even will develop those brown spots that mozzarella does, or if it will turn into soup. I'm 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 observing it. Oh, okay. I can see we're getting browning on the edges of the tortilla where there's just a thin sheen of just a thin layer of cheese, and the tortilla is curling a little bit. The edges of the tortilla are browning faster than everything else is, so that's my guide mark for sure. So I don't want to burn that part of it. Oh, and my cheese is browning. Not a ton, but enough that I think I want to switch the thing off and pull it. Because I don't want to burn anything. Okay. So that worked ish. Brown spots there. I pulled it because we're getting some pretty noticeable dry browning on the edge of the tortilla, and I don't want that to go too nasty. So there it is. This is our thing. This is the thing I have created. If you're familiar with the Taco Bell version, honestly, this looks a lot like the Taco Bell version. To me, I don't honestly like the Taco Bell one though, so I'm hoping this tastes a lot better. I'm also hoping that the tortillas have remained rigid enough that I can lift this out onto my serving plate, which I'm going to get closer here. We're still not stuck, so that's a good sign. Okay, we've lost a little bit of our rigidness on the bottom one, which was expected. But we got it off in one piece. Behold. God, I wish this camera was nicer. It looks a lot nicer in person than it does on this little camera. This, of all my cameras, this one, you need replacing the most. See if I can't show it off in a little bit better light. Nope, that's just blown out. Um, uh, eh? This is my best camera. I think it looks good. I kind of it has other than the tomato, it doesn't have any acidic components to it. Speaking of acidic components, it looks like I got away with nothing really dripping onto my pan either, so that'll be a really easy cleanup. But yeah, so it's got no acidic components, so I kind of want to add lime juice. It also a drizzle of hot sauce would look very striking on the top of that thing. And I don't seem to have any like Mexican style hot sauce. I've got a Louisiana style hot sauce. What is it? It needs a finishing. It needs something just to finish the top. Like a green onion. I mentioned it earlier, and I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna take one of these green onions, get rid of the little gnarly bit there. Take one of these green onions, and I'm just gonna take off one of the side stems. Because I don't want the white part, I just want the green part. And I don't need very much. We're gonna cut this really thin. Just for a little finishing sprinkle on the top. And this also gives it just a little bit of time to chill out before I try to dive in, because it was just in a very hot oven under the broiler. Although it wasn't in there super long. But I think some fresh green onion is just what this is asking for. visually at least. I have not tasted it because it's still hot. You can't even see it. I'm on the wrong angle still. Well, I just spent a little bit of time thinly slicing my green onion on the bias so that I can do a artful topping with it. Nice arrangement. And I do want some red to pop on the top as well. So I'm going to take a little bit of my smoked paprika and sprinkle it. I know there's tomatoes peeking through, and that's giving me a red pop, but this is little specks, which is different. I'm going to take this around the corner since I don't think anybody's watching right now. So I'm going to take this around the corner and grab some photos. Unplugged my photo light. Where did I put my photo machine? There we are. There must be something exciting going on tonight. That I was not clued into. That's the angle. Okay. Now I'll bring it back. We're coming back. We're coming back. Coming back. Now to cut this, I gotta get it off the plate. It's a little soft on the bottom. That is definitely a factor here. But I want to cut it with a proper pizza cutter because that is a test of a pizza as far as I'm concerned. And then we will restore the nicest slices. Ooh, cheese stretch. Nobody saw it. I don't think you can eat this like a pizza. I think that element of a pizza is lost on it. I can try. It's cool enough to touch, actually. It cooled off pretty quickly. I think the tortilla just doesn't retain heat as much as a pizza dough. But, oh, actually, you can pick that up pretty well. Huh. It's a little soft, but not terrible. Pull that guy aside a little bit. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to artfully arrange it on the plate. Oop, geez. Of course, the proof is in the tasting. Get out the small plate. take my most artful piece. And I guess no one's watching, so let's go back over to the photo station and do photos. Oh, that scorpion cheese is got a punch. Okay, that should be enough photos. I'll bring the big guy back so you can look at it while I taste it. Plop that guy right there. And we're going to give a taster for just the whole thing. Just go in with a bite. Tortilla still has a little bit of crisp to it, which is good. Even right in the center. So it's not a really strongly crispy bottom, but it's enough. The veggies on top are cooked now, but they still have that tender crisp to them. The stuff in the middle, the meat and bean mix, is very squidgy. It's very soft. But honestly, it's firmer than I was expecting to some degree. It's much firmer than the Taco Bell meat. So it almost mimics like the squidgy interior of a thick crust pizza, where it's crispy on the bottom, but then it's got that soft or doughy middle. In this case, that soft doughy middle is beans. The flavors all blend together, but the heat comes through pretty strongly. I don't want to add hot sauce to this. That scorpion cheese is punching above its weight for sure. I'm going to add a little bit of lime juice. From my partly dried out lime. And have another bite of the lime juiced part, because I think lime juice is what I want. It's what is missing. Move my mic. Definitely. The Oaxaca cheese is a very, very mild flavor, so it's not really coming through, but it's providing a lot of cheesy texture, which is pretty much what mozzarella does on a pizza anyways. But I think that the quantity of it is helping to balance out the scorpion cheese quite a bit. But the lime gives another dimension to it. Fresh squeezed lime on top of this, I think, is a must. Or I suppose it doesn't have to be fresh squeezed. Fresh squeezed is always the best, but if you've got one of those little like plastic limes, a drizzle of lime juice right before you eat it, I think is primo on this thing. It's very rich. I like all the textures. This would also be probably good with just a little bit of. Now I've got sour cream, so I'll use sour cream, but the Mexican sour cream, what's it called? Crema. Just a little bit of crema, I think. In part because the scorpion cheese is quite hot. But yeah, I think this thing is a success, and it wasn't honestly that hard to do. The biggest experiment was figuring out the right way to toast the tortillas in a dry pan, which worked after a brief problem of the pan being too hot. Honestly, worked really well. Because they still have a crisp even after I've loaded all these wet ingredients on top of them. So it worked. So yeah. Looks like I lost all my viewers over the course of the evening. So I don't think I will be raiding with nobody. Let's just take a peek at who is on right now. There's a lot of people on right now. But yeah, okay. Well, I'm gonna go visit. Let's see. I haven't seen Sal this week. I'm gonna go visit Sal. Let's see. Sal's playing a new game I've never heard of, but I like hanging out with Sal, so that's what we'll do. We'll do a raid over to Sal with just me. And I will be back on Tuesday with all new something. I don't know what it is yet. We'll find out when we get there. See you next week. Wish me luck on that library job. 3, 2, 1, raid.